Nano Machine. Bai, Ang Hongguolya. Chapter 359. Not an Ally. Part 1. The base of the Imperial Palace Guardian was hidden deep within the enormous shrine. There were a total of 7 underground halls. The last hall, the 7th cavity, which was said to be located in the deepest underground path, had only been visited a couple of times. Even by the masters, who were the heads of the Guardians. It was the place where the treasure of the Empire, since its founding, had been kept and protected. Hot, it is getting so hot. The face of a middle-aged man, who was accompanying the woman called Bloodmaster, was drenched in sweat. Even though they were cultivating their bodies, the heat seemed to be too high to consider it normal. The heat around them didn't seem like a natural phenomenon, it's as if the underground hall was rejecting them. Are you alright? How is it so hot in here? He tried to think of a possible reason for it, but it was completely clueless. The woman, Bloodmaster, wasn't sweating at all, as if the heat didn't have much effect on her. She was showing them how different she was when compared to them. Surely she is one of the leading ones of Blade God's 6 martial clan. Putting aside the useless worries, the middle-aged man decided to protect himself by handling the heat invading his body. Shortly after, they saw the end of the passage. I think we reached the location. The moment they were about to pass into the passage, a white barrier appeared in front of their eyes. It felt strange to finally see the end of the passage. There didn't seem to be any other entrance after the white wall which blocked them. As they approached the wall, a text was engraved on the wall which seemed to be the entrance side. Anyone who wishes for the treasures here will be trapped in here for eternity, and will die miserably. For those who try to escape by using force, they will also die. The words were vague and contained ominous warnings. The woman called Bloodmaster touched the wall as she read it. Seeing from a distance, it looked like a simple pure white wall, but viewing it up close, she noticed how it was made by stacking the bricks. It couldn't be, right? Just thinking of a possibility, she entered the wall. Ah! An annoyed voice escaped from her lips. The walls were made of bricks, each brick stacked upon another, but they seemed to be connected. The wall had been designed so thoughtfully and beautifully that the entire structure would collapse if anyone broke even one brick in the wall to pass through. Coo. Intruders, no matter how much you try, you will never be able to reach the final floor. It was a warning from the person who called himself the Great Guardian. The people who guarded the underground palace, guarded every hall, and it seemed like this Great Guardian was the last guard to protect the treasure. You are wasting your time here. Shaking her head at the warnings, she entered the wall without any hesitation and was soon followed by the middle-aged man. But the moment they stepped inside, they felt a strange vibration on the floor and the wall, as if the ground was rotating. On the other hand, the 4th underground opening, which was a long way from the 7th level, was a mess. At the bottom of the 4th underground opening, there were traces of fierce battle with numerous lifeless bodies scattered around. It was just a rough estimate, it seemed like there were around 50 dead people. There was only one person who was still breathing in that place. With his clothes stained in thick blood, he seemed to be doing something with the dead bodies. Swish. Cha. Unusually, he inflicted new wounds on the already dead bodies. Most of the bodies seemed to be dead for a few days now, and he seemed to be carving something on their bodies with their swords. Ugh, it's such a mess. It was a complaint for doing it on the body one by one. Since only the best of the men entered the base of the Guardian, there was no other choice but to do such tasks. Cha. Killing them didn't take long, but the process of manipulating the sword on their body to carve things took a long time. Since there were other tasks which had to be done, this man had to remain alone and clean up the mess, like a servant. Even then, it is almost done. There were another 6 dead bodies or so for him to get the work done. Perhaps, the Bloodmaster, that monster, must have already reached the place where the treasure was being hidden. I need to hurry up. He, too, was curious about the hidden treasure. As he quickly approached the next body, he felt a sudden release of energy from the common entrance, which was on the other side. Is it possible to have reinforcements sent this quickly? It was too short of a time for reinforcements to come. With a curious feeling, he turned his head and looked at the entrance. At the entrance of the passage, a young officer clad in gold armor made an appearance. A guard? He thought it would be reinforcements, but only one person was sent? And the guard was none other than Hubong. As Hubong looked at the dead bodies, he clicked his tongue. What? There are more here. This is too much, ugh. Hubong, who was shocked with the number of the corpses lying around, found a man standing among them. Pointing his finger, he shouted at the man. Found him. I came down 4 levels into the basement, only to barely catch you. Hu Bong, who was disguised as a guard, let out a cry as the man raised his eyebrows in confusion. When he felt the energy, he thought an entire squadron of guardians came, but it was just one person. Moreover, from feeling the energy up close of the guard, he seemed nothing but a grandmaster level. Although he was a strong Wuling martial arts wielder, it saddened him to know that he would have to take down the guard, who was just maturing. Ah! How dare he point a finger at me, someone who is higher than him? The man didn't want to come out as cheeky or overconfident. Still, just to be sure, the unknown man asked. Are you alone? Ah, yes, I'm still single. The man was momentarily stunned by the absurd answer from the guard. Are you trying to mess with me by using such puns? Bun? I just answered your question honestly. How dare you? Fat. The man couldn't hold back his anger as the guard continued the joke, so he decided to kill the cheeky guard. He narrowed the distance between them with 5 steps in just a single moment and unfolded his sword. How dare you talk like that to me? I am going to tear down that damn mouth of yours. As he said that, the exquisite sword chi spread and soon reached Hu Bong's face. At that moment, creep. This is. The sudden release of energy began to warn every cell and neuron in his body. The sudden release of another energy made a chill run down his spine. The man who sensed the increased amount of energy, decided to give up an upfront attack and tried to change his tactic, but it was too late. Slash. Pop. Pop. Cough. 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 In an instant, a sword with black chi spreading around, appeared from behind Hu Bong and stabbed the unknown man right in the chest. Everything happened so fast that the man had no chance to avoid or block the attack. Thud. The man, who got stabbed suddenly began to cough up blood as he collapsed on the floor. Looking at that, Hu Bong shouted. I believe the person behind me. He. The person behind Hu Bong was Chun Yoan. As Chun Yoan stayed in the passage, he couldn't be seen, but he was witnessing everything which happened. However, Chun Yoan couldn't fully comprehend the skills of the unknown man. Cough, cough. The man, who still hadn't died yet, looked up at Chun Yoan with shock in his eyes. His face became white and pale, with a grim look in his eyes. Ho, a main seat as myself got overpowered by a young guard, that too with just 1 strike? It was hard to believe. Moreover, the guard didn't even seem that skilled to his eyes. Within a couple seconds, he started denying this reality. Anyone, with such a monster-like skill and agility, could never be part of the guards. Cough. Cough. You, who the hell, are you? Looking down at him, Chun Yoan spoke in a cold voice. After using my methods on these bodies, how could you not know? Methods? What? The man who couldn't understand the answer at first, soon understood, making him go stiff. There was only one man who would proudly use the word my method. It was none other than the lord of the demonic cult. Demonic cult? Why are they here? The man was supposed to use the demonic method for their plan to work, but the own lord of the demonic cult made an appearance in front of him. Chuck. Kawak. As if he was still in thought, Chun Yoan cut off his right arm. At the sudden severance of the right arm, the man was still unable to comprehend what was happening. While he held on to the severed hand which was bleeding, Chun Yoan spoke in a calm voice. I am busy. Every time you don't give me the right answer, I will cut off one of your limbs. Okay? The man was surprised at how Chun Yoan casually spoke about cutting down the limbs. The man, who was on the ground, started groaning in pain because of his severed arm. At that moment, Chun Yoan's sword cut his left thigh. Slash. Ah. As he screamed in pain, Chun Yoan bluntly spoke. You still haven't answered me. This crazy bastard. The man's face slowly started turning pale due to his limbs being torn. The 6th opening, the last line of defense, before entering the final underground cavity, was the battlefield for a fierce battle. Despite having already sent the monster-like woman to the place, the battle turned into a fight for survival. On the floor, on the side of the entrance, which led to the 7th, underground, opening, was a middle-aged man with no arms. He was on the 3 pillars of the Imperial Palace Guardian. The Great Guardian. Thump! The Great Guardian, without arms, gritted his teeth in anger. How did such a situation happen? It was a tragedy which took place while he tried to stop the woman, who was referred to as the Bloodmaster, trying to cross the hall and heading for the 7th opening entrance, while trying to kill the Guardian warriors who were guarding the 7th opening entrance. However, in just one attack, such a result was achieved. How can the Great Guardian of the Imperial Palace turn out like this? Even after he was considered as the master of the guardians, who reached the superior master level, he couldn't stand against the woman. She truly was an unimaginable monster. The great guardian, who lost both his arms, turned helpless after just one attack, but there was no doubt that the other guardians couldn't stop her. Slash. Ah. The entire opening was swarming with sounds of slashes and screams. The woman called Blood Monster was indeed a monster, but the two blood-soaked warriors who were standing beside her were also powerful. One of them was on the same level as the great guardian. Cough. In the battle, the throats of the court maids were slashed in an instant, not giving them a chance to fight. Although they were women, the Blood Master didn't go easy on them and boldly attacked them, making their blood splatter everywhere. It was too painful to watch such battles happen. You will be the last to die. As commanded by the Blood Master, the great guardian wasn't touched and the others were being killed by her companions with spears right now, including the great guardian. There were only 8 people alive. Quack, these people. Gulp. Tears flowed from the eyes of the guardians when he saw his companions being killed in the cruelest way possible, right in front of his eyes. They were hoping to be killed first to avoid seeing such a scene, but it seemed that did not go as planned. Not many are left. They are so terrible. I know. Shock. Cough. It was an overwhelmingly incapacitated battle, yet, not a single warrior of the guardian stepped back and retreated. Also, it was impossible for the 2 intruders to stay unscathed in a battle with such skilled guardian warriors. They were injured, albeit, to a minor level. 5 people left. With only the 5 of them remaining, they were all terrified of losing the remaining companions. They were aware of what outcome would come from engaging in a battle with these enemies. Clang! The woman held the spear in her hand and raised the other hand as she stepped forward. The hand signals were meant to deal with the people in the best way possible. The man with her nodded. Woohoo, you can do whatever you want with these people. When the woman's order was told loudly, the man smiled as he walked for the remaining surviving warriors of the Guardian. Top. 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 What? At that time, something like mud began to fall on their heads. None of them cared, thinking that the mud-like object was falling as a result of the fierce battle happening underground, but that was when the middle-aged man, accompanying the woman, shouted, "Blood Master! Avoid it!" Crack. At that very moment, a crack appeared as the ceiling broke and collapsed. Large pieces of rocks, comparable to huge stones, began to fall to the floor. Shit. Shocked by the unexpected turn of events, the one with the spear, the man who accompanied Blood Master, moved forward. Quack. 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 He started hitting the huge rocks that were falling from the ceiling. And thanks to that, dust flew everywhere and obscured everyone's vision. Thank God. Although the place was a mess, the man with the spear sighed in relief as he managed to avoid large rocks. He couldn't hear the voice of the Blood Master. If she was a second late in escaping the rocks, she would have been injured for sure and said something. As the dust began to set, the man with the spear could see an outline of a figure. Who is that? Though he could see a person, he couldn't feel any energy from that person. It was like an ordinary person who didn't learn martial arts. Wing. At that time, the figure shook his hand lightly in the air, and the dust, which was covering the area, soon subsided. Doing so, the figure's appearance was visible to everyone there. What? A young man with white face and long hair was wearing the guard's uniform. However, there was something about his face that felt familiar. Ah, it can't be, right? The eyes of the one called Blood Master and the spearman widened. It was none other than their companion, whom the Blood Master had ordered to work on leaving sword marks on the corpses of the upper levels of the underground. Chapter 360. Not an Ally. Part 2. This man was supposed to come down to this place after he was done putting the demonic art mark on the corpses. However, unexpected situations occurred. How could he have known that his head would get cut off in the hands of a guard he had never heard of? Both the Blood Master and the man with the spear were at a loss of words, and the long-haired man in a gold uniform spoke, while his lips curled into a cruel smile. This was the fastest way. The guard with long hair, pure white face and gold uniform was Chun Yoan. Why did he make an appearance in that underground level by breaking the ceiling? It was a drastic attempt. A few hours ago. Besides these ones, there are 4 more people. Cough, cough, that is right. The man caught by Chun Yoan wasn't just grunting in pain while his arms and legs were being cut off. He also told information about his companions to Chun Yoan. It was also that he could get hit in his head and die without suffering any more. Suddenly, the temperature in the surroundings started to rise. Chun Yoan didn't have any choice but to cut off his neck before the man tried to self-destruct himself with energy running wild in his body. Chun Yoan was told about the number of people who were inside. And, one of the purposes that they infiltrated the Guardian Hall was because it held the blood of Qilin in the royal shrine. So it really does exist. That alien energy which was felt from the court ladies, the red scales on their skin, everything pointed to something suspicious happening and for the Qilin blood to be real. Anyways, I'll have to hurry up. He had no idea what would happen if the precious blood of Qilin got into the hands of the infiltrators. He had to stop them at all costs so that another problem didn't pop up. However, the passages and the halls connected in the basement were a lot more complicated than Chun Yoan thought, which gave Chun Yoan a bold idea. Break through the ground. Even the sapphire wall could be burst through with Chun Yoan's power. Combining it with air sword, it was worth a try. And the result was, he came down to the 6th level through the ceiling. G-guard? It wasn't just the infiltrators who were shocked by Chun Yoan appearing from the ceiling. The warriors of the Imperial Palace Guardian were shocked too. Looking at the appearance, they couldn't help but feel that a guard had just entered the hall. Maybe it's the reinforcements? Due to the unusual appearance, the remaining warriors misunderstood that His Majesty, the Emperor, had sent reinforcements for them. Their desire to hold on to life made them lose their reasoning. Hi, His Majesty has sent us reinforcements. Yeah. As one of the warriors shouted, the rest of the Guardian warriors cheered. The face of the Great Guardian, who was in despair, leaning against a wall turned red. He just saw someone fall from the sky. Long live the Emperor. They were extremely grateful for the Emperor's grace. At the sound of their cheers, the eyes of the 2 Jiangpan, spearmen, turned pale. While the others were cheering, they were shocked. They already reached the conclusion that the colleague, whose job was to put demonic arts marks on the corpses, had died at the hands of this guard. Just one guard did that? A measly imperial guard, who didn't learn Wuling but mastered any kind of martial arts, struck and killed their companion? The spearman, who couldn't hold back his emotions and started rushing towards Chun Yoan. He's so impatient. The spearman, who released energy, couldn't hide his anger. The guard in front of him had just come down through the ceiling. The spearman couldn't grasp just how strong the man was. Woong. From the spearman's spear, a blue chi began to rise. Unlike any general spearman, the one in this man's hand was long and had an exquisite look. As the spear went to attack, dozens of trajectories of the spearheads formed, covered, and headed towards Chun Yoan. Cha, 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 cha. Each of the arrowheads aiming only for the guard. The warriors, who thought that the guard was there to save them, screamed on top of their voices. Avoid. Deflect them. Dealing such an attack from close range was impossible. Even the Great Guardian would have a hard time at tackling this attack. Everyone wanted the guard to avoid the attack. In the front? Rather than listening to the warriors, Chun Yoan walked towards the spearheads as if he didn't care at all. You idiot! You are only walking towards your death. The lip corners of the spearman rose. Although he attacked on emotions, he wasn't sure where the battle would go. This spear attack is a combination of many spear attacks. He had invented the technique himself. At that time, Chun Yoan threw the spy's head in his extended hand. Chuck. What? At that moment, the spearman's eyes went wide. It definitely looked like Chun Yoan pulling out a sword from his waist, and he seemed like he picked out a white sword, but only half of its body came out. No way. At that moment. Cha, 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 clang, clang. The spearheads, which were heading towards the Chun Yoan, suddenly got deflected and bounced towards all the directions. It looked as if the spearheads had hit an invisible wall. What is this attack? Looking at the skill, even the Great Guardian couldn't hide his shocked expression. This guard seemed similar to the monstrous woman called the Blood Master, the Great Guardian thought. Crrrrk. Quack. Blood flowed from both the hands of the spearman, who held the spear tightly. Why? How did that happen? His palms were torn. It was the aftermath of his own attacks being deflected by Chun Yoan. The deflected attacks reflected with such a speed that even the spearman's body couldn't handle it, and when the spearheads touched his palm, the palms tore. I can't handle him. Even though the spearman pulled out his best attack, he was the one who got hurt, not Chun Yoan. Clang, clang, clang. The spearman, who couldn't overcome the constant attacks for the air sword, got pushed back by 10 steps. As if he passed through the storm, his hair turned into a mess and his eyes were losing focus. In the midst of all that, he couldn't help but shout at the guard who was displaying such skill. "Why you? Who the hell are you? How could you use that skill?" It was no surprise that he screamed. The skill Chun Yoan used to deflect the arrows was the 5th level skill of Blade God's 6 martial clans. It was a technique that not everyone could use, and even those who reached the highest levels had trouble using it. To use that technique meant that the guard was someone more skilled than the spearman. How could this happen? The problem was that the technique Chun Yoan used was something only a few of the elders in the Blade God's 6 clan could use. This attack, the extreme art of Blade God, added speed to the body which made the body bypass the normal limit, and there was no way that someone other than the Blade God's 6 clan could learn it. How is a guard using our hug? Clang! Suddenly, the spearman's spear cracked and broke into 2 pieces. It was no surprise that Chun Yoan decided to close the distance between them. "You talk a lot, ugh." Spearman tried to increase the distance between them by swinging the broken spear and taking steps back. However, Chun Yoan was much faster, leaving afterimages as he approached the spearman and jumped towards the man. How is he using the extreme art of Blade God? Shocked by the guard using their swordsman skills, the spearman began to increase the energy as he rotated the spear's pieces to defend any incoming attacks. Puck. Shhhhh. Cough. However, Chun Yoan appeared behind him. A black energy with an eerie feeling rose from Chun Yoan's fingers, which were holding onto the sword. The spearman stared at his chest in shock. He has such unbelievable skills? His chest was wide open and a hole was present where Chun Yoan attacked. Chun Yoan casually mumbled under his breath. "I am sorry, but I am in a hurry, so I don't have time to deal with you." The sword, which penetrated the spearman's chest, was giving out a heavenly aura. In an instant, the guard was able to change the sword skills. The guard seemed to be a terrifying person because even the superior master of the Blade God's 6 martial clan couldn't do such a skill. Impossible. How can I? Thud. The spearman who was muttering to himself stopped talking and fell down to the ground. The moment he fell to the ground, the warriors of the Guardian screamed loudly. Whoa! He killed the enemy. Even when 50 warriors tried to attack him at the same time, the spearman only had shallow wounds on his body, but this man, with his amazing skills, killed 2 of the infiltrators. How did such a talent bloom in the guards? At first, the Great Guardian was thrilled because he assumed that this guard was His Majesty's reinforcements. Among the guards, the southern commander was known to be strongest, but no one had witnessed his strength. Even if he was a guard who was solely appointed to protect the emperor, this guard was giving out a feeling that he could take down dozens of infiltrators. The guard seemed to be as strong as the spearman without breaking a sweat. It was almost as if the guard was one of the top 5 Wulian warriors. It can't be. How can he die with only 2 strikes? Another spearman, who was there, couldn't hide his shock. The dead man was known to be inferior in the skills of the Blade God's 6 martial clan, but he was talented in terms of Murim. A guard took him down? The warriors of the Great Guardian couldn't understand how he belonged to the guards. If every one of the guards were this strong, then the spies who infiltrated the palace could be taken down by them easily and quickly. No. He is unlike any guard I've seen. Who is this person? Confusion arose among the warriors' minds. They wouldn't have been so confused if Chun Yoan didn't use the extreme art of Blade God. At that moment, Chun Yoan turned towards him and asked, "Are you the last one here?" His icy eyes stared at the infiltrator. Damn it. Srrrrng. Just meeting Chun Yoan's gaze made the spearman feel fear. Crossing blows with the monstrous guard in front didn't matter to him anymore. There was no need to fight a losing battle. Death was the only result for him. To fight against someone you cannot deal was beyond stupid. I need to take him to Bloodmaster. That monster was the only one who could deal with Chun Yoan in the spearman's eyes. There was no way a spearman could take down the guard. Thinking so, he decided to escape towards Bloodmaster and started to move. I need to create a gap between us. Woong. The infiltrator raised his spear and began to release energy to the place where Chun Yoan was standing. He wasn't exactly aiming at Chun Yoan, but just around Chun Yoan. Bang! 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 As the floor got hit, dust began to rise around Chun Yoan, obscuring his vision. All the infiltrator needed was a moment to run away. Now. Once the spearman saw enough dust rise, he quickly moved to the passage which would lead them to the last hall. It was the right choice. Facing a confrontation with Chun Yoan would only bring him death. Whoosh! Suddenly something moved. The spearman ignored it and rushed towards the passage, but a light suddenly appeared at the entrance of the passage. However, after running, he couldn't help but stop at the entrance, which was currently blocked. Keek. How is this possible? The man was shocked after seeing the passage being blocked. While he saw that it was just some simple light, it gave him an eerie sensation. And then, something amazing happened. Sheeing. Dozens of ice swords floated in the air right at the entrance of the passage, all pointing towards him. The man was speechless. Ice swords? It can't be. No one would even know how the ice swords work unless they saw them. It was even questionable whether it was realistically possible to create such a large number of ice swords. What the hell? Is he some kind of monster? The ice swords seemed like they were desperate to plunge into the man. Did you really think that you could run away? Shit. The voice of Chun Yoan reached in the spearman's ears. Sadly, even his plan to live a little longer failed. The man, who lost his last resort, felt his heart pounding against his ribs. He wielded his spear and stood against the ice sword. Just end it. It was better to break through the ice swords than deal with the monster behind him. The spearman unfolded his best technique to break down all the ice swords. Clang, 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 clang. Among the techniques based on Blade God's 6 martial clan, his forte was close combat. As he took position, dozens of ice swords flew towards him like rain falling to the ground. Swoosh. I just need to be vigilant. In order to not get hit, the man began to release energy as swords collided and fell. Clang, clang, clang. Although the ice swords were sharp and hard, it couldn't compare to the strength of a real sword. Whenever his spear clashed with the ice sword would crumble. After realizing this, color returned to the man's face. I can get away. Half of the ice swords were already broken, but there was one thing he missed. If it was a grandmaster, then moving while using the ice sword would be tough. However, Chun Yoan was not normal. With the help of the system, he could simultaneously control the ice sword and move. His back is unprotected, what? The moment the man turned his head, a voice surprised him from behind. Puck. Cough. A white sword passed through the spearman's neck. The spearman had no time to react. His eyes, which were filled with life and hope thinking that he could escape, soon turned into despair. How? He wanted to ask how the guard could move, but the next moment, he lost his life. Thud. Puck. The man's neck cracked and his head fell onto the floor. Whoa. Cheers escaped from the mouth of the great guardian who leaned towards the entrance. Seeing the man's head roll around, he couldn't help but admire the guard. It would be no exaggeration to call the man as God's warrior. This is amazing. To think there was such a skilled man. His identity didn't matter anymore, and he was fortunate enough that this monster was their ally. Right. This person will be able to deal with that monstrous woman. It's been quite some time since the woman went down, and if the guard hurried, he could stop her from touching the treasure. Ugh. Go down and stop the enemies in there. You need to hurry before the treasure gets stolen. With urgency in his voice, the great guardian shouted to Chun Yoan. However, he felt something was off. Chun Yoan approached him without saying anything. The great guardian, who was puzzled, started to worry. G-guard? As the guardian felt scared and the guard spoke. What should I do? What do you mean? I am not your ally either, huh? What is that? Slash. Before he could respond, Chun Yoan slit his throat. The head of the great guardian, whose throat was slit, fell on the floor with a thud. What the hell? Guard, how can you do this? In an instant, the warriors who were cheering and believed that he was an ally sent by the emperor went mute and still. It was natural that they were shocked. After all, it was the head of the great guardian which fell down. Turning his head, Chun Yoan asked the remaining warriors. Guard, do I still look like a guard? If he wasn't the guard, then who was he? Chun Yoan lifted his sword and aimed it at them, and spoke in an authoritative voice. I am the lord of the 10,000 mountains. 10,000 mountains? No. Demonic cult? The lord of the 10,000 mountains was another term for the lord of demonic cult. Their eyes, which looked at Chun Yoan, went wide at the obvious truth that he spoke. But that wasn't the end. And now I am an enemy who is going to kill you all. Slash. The moment he was done speaking, Chun Yoan unfolded the sky demon sword.